Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, and we still have quite a few questions about what happened yesterday with SpaceX's landing attempt for CRS-16. Now, remember, again, the important thing is the mission was a success. The Dragon capsule's on its way to the International Space Station, and in the long run, that is really all that matters. These booster recoveries really only benefit SpaceX. So, although it's a failure to the fact that they didn't have a soft touchdown of this booster named 10.50.1, so its first flight, they at least the mission itself was successful. But we still have a lot of cool, fun questions and things that we can try to figure out and try to recreate using Kerbal Space Program. So let's just go ahead and pop right into this thing. I'm excited because this is pretty fun. So I'm going to pop into the vehicle assembly building. I'm just going to throw this thing together. I'll let you hopefully you can just kind of learn how to build this on your own. But we're just going to do a super quick and dirty Falcon 9. And then I'm going to show you how we can basically make it so the grid fins get stuck in a similar manner to that of the real thing. So I'm going to just build this. Sorry if you're in the chat. I'm going to kind of be focusing on this relatively quickly and trying to get this done in a quick manner. So the fun thing about Kerbal is, in real life, the Falcon 9 is 3.6 meters, 3.66 meters wide, 12 feet wide, and we have a 3.7 meter wide body part. So I'm going to be using those just to kind of keep it somewhat relative in that scale. We could use other things, but I guess this looks kind of nice. So I'm just going to, like I said, just throw this together super quick. It's not going to be the cleanest build you've ever seen. It's not necessarily going to be the most accurate build you're going to see, but I'm just going to throw this together. But this will be close enough to hopefully be able to replicate what we are seeing. So I'm just adding a bunch of fuel tanks, and we're not even going to worry about an upper stage in this because I just want to replicate the landing, and we're going to show you what went wrong with this landing. So maybe add one more tank. That looks about right, or is that still maybe one more? This thing is awfully tall. There we go. That looks pretty good. I do have a thing called Kerbal Reusability Expansion that allows me to have nice, high fidelity, and accurate looking landing legs. There we are. That is exactly what we want. And then, of course, there's going to be 9 Merlin engines. And the thing that actually works as far as the gimbal, because those Merlin engines can gimbal and steer very, very quickly. So we're actually going to use these. They're called KS-25s in the game, but they're kind of like the Space Shuttle main engines. We're going to use 9 of them, and they'll just barely fit pretty tight here around the edges. This will give it kind of an unusually high thrust-to-weight ratio, but no such thing as too much power. It's good enough anyway. One thing, if I really wanted to be pedantic, we could make it so we could fire off just 3 in a row by doing these in pairs. I just don't think we really care that much because we're mostly just trying to demonstrate what happened with the grid fins failing. So here we go. We're just going to... so what we're going to do is we're going to replicate the mission, just kind of a normal, how they would normally re-enter and how they would normally handle this, and then we're going to create the failure. So here's going to be our... I always do that. Every time. Come on, Tim. No, there. I meant to do that. That was all intentional, baby. Also, I'm going to move this thing down here. I feel like that's probably the best place for me in Kerbal. But here we go. So these are the grid fins. I toggled them so on group 5 they'll open up, and this will be our normal one. I will show you how they kind of would normally dogleg back towards land, and yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna call this Wonky Falcon 9. Here we go. Save, and let's do it. Okay, so now for this first launch, we're just gonna try to make it, give it a normal launch. So we're gonna launch straight up. And go up and kind of do its normal trajectory. Of course, we're missing the upper stage, so this is a bit of a weird one. We're going to be flying with the inner stage up, but here we go, 3, 2, 1, hip, hip. And, yeah, so what we're going to do, we're going to do kind of the normal RTLS thing, which is, it takes a pretty lofty trajectory. It doesn't end up doing a ton of a gravity turn, because it's easier, if you don't go super far horizontally, it's easier for it to turn around and make it home if it ends up mostly putting a lot of that velocity in horizontally and a decent amount sideways, but not nearly as much as it would for a mission that's doing a GTO or a geostationary transfer. Those are pretty high energy, They lofted out there quite a bit to inject a lot of velocity in that upper stage. But we're going to kind of do this dogleg thing. We're going to take it up to about 100 kilometers in altitude. And yeah, like I said, we're flying this thing naked. So don't judge it too much. Probably could have stuck an upper stage on it, but I just wanted to build it quick. All we're worried about is this landing. The rest of it, meh. Meh. So here we go. We're going to pop out of this atmosphere really fast. We're just punching through this thing. Holy cow, look at those G-forces. So, and I'm looking at this 110, and 119. We'll kind of just keep burning a little bit. I don't know why. 120 is arbitrary. But now, look at us. We are out, leaving the atmosphere. Once we're above 70,000 70 kilometers, 70,000 meters, we will be kind of outside of Kerbal's atmosphere. We're going to start performing a boost back maneuver anyway and get ready to do this. What we're going to try to do is just basically cancel out most of our horizontal velocity here. And we want to land just short of land so that we have to dogleg in the atmosphere back towards Kerbal Space Center. So that's what we're going to try to do. This is really hard for me to judge. I'm just going to totally have to wing it. So unfortunately, they don't move with the planet. These are stationary, non-relative motion to Kerbin. So even if I were to totally stop where we're at, it's really hard to judge. And for some reason, my trajectory mod is not working. Is it? Unset target, set impact. Set KSC. Who knows? Unset target. I don't want it trying to do stuff. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start performing this boost back burn. And I'm just totally going to have to eyeball it. But it's going to be something surprisingly not far out. Like this would be... I'm gonna quick save here so that if I need to do a little more of a boost back burn, I can. But like I said, we actually... Oh, there we go. This is actually looking pretty good because notice... we want our prograde vector to not be going super horizontally. It is now going west. It's going on the 270-degree axis, but it's not super far over. So we're just kind of slowly drifting back towards land. But I'm hoping that that I eyeballed it good enough to not land straight up back at Kennedy Space Center. We want to fall just short, and this looks about right. Okay, so again, this is going to be our nominal mission. Quote unquote, at least as nominal as I can do it, just totally eyeing it. I'm going to get these grid fins deployed. It looks like I have forgotten to set those into an action group. Pop these things all out here real quick. So here we go. So this looks about right. We might actually be coming down. Oh, this is actually about perfect. I think I'm going to make sure and do a quick save. I probably should have done another quick save. Whatever. We are going to have to start performing a re-entry burn here. So we don't get too hot. This is not how the re-entry burn normally is. It's normally 3 engines. I was just too lazy to do an action group on that. So we're just going to do all 9 engines. Slow ourselves down significantly here. Okay. Now we need to worry about doglegging over. So watch this. This is where these grid fins are really going to come in handy. So notice we are clearly heading towards the ocean. You'd think. But watch this. We can actually induce lift using the atmosphere, using those grid fins. And look at this. We're starting to move ourselves over. So they intentionally fall short and require these grid fins in order to actually perform a landing burn. Look at that. That is absolutely perfect. Landing legs out, do one of these. That's about the best I could ask for, guys. Again, this is very willy-nilly, but that showed that we were clearly going to land over the ocean. That's how the Falcon 9 works. It's not like it has some system that's like abort to land. It just requires all of these moving parts in order to actually land on land. And to make it over to land. In order to dogleg, it requires those grid fins working. So if those grid fins are not working, it cannot do this. And I'm making a complete mockery of this landing procedure. But the dogleg portion, the important part is we did the dogleg correctly. And now we're coming down to LZ1. This is going to be very, very, very difficult with all these engines. Oh gosh, because we don't have a high enough thrust to weight ratio. Even if I do a really quick... Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay. A little exaggerated here, but there we go. A nice clean touchdown with a dogleg, with the grid fins performing that dogleg. So, what are you doing here, bud? Just do your thing. Just land. You're fine. Be happy. Be content. You're one of the lucky ones. So, again, normally the vehicle on its boost back burn will fall short by default. It's just a safety thing. If it were to happen to like burn too long or something, they'd probably detonate it then. I'm guessing. I don't know their protocol, but it's intentionally going to target short of the landing site. It does its re-entry burn. As long as the re-entry burn's good, then they can start to dogleg over and start to kind of swoop over. And we can see that in a lot of the footage, like that NROL 76 mission that was last year. We got this awesome video where you can tell they have a strong angle of attack and they're doglegging over and they're bringing it on top of the landing pad. They're bringing it over land. So it requires the use of these grid fins. So now one can ask, well, what happens if the grid fins aren't working correctly? Oh, yes. This is what Kerbal Space Program is all about here, folks. We can do a great replication here because check this out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make it so they deploy crooked. Period. Like they're going to deploy. We're going to have one pair rolling. We're going to have another pair at an angle. You'll see how I do this. So first off, I'm actually going to switch this to over here. Just you'll see why. So right now, if I were to induce, let me deploy these. If I were to come out of the gate like this, hang on. There we go, like this. Notice this is again going to induce a roll because this will be opposite. So I think a pair of them were maybe doing that, and the other pair may have been trying to induce some yaw. So what I'm going to do is, in order to do this, I'm going to switch which type of, it's not going to be mirrored, or these will be mirrored so that we have them crooked like this. Look at that. So these two are going to be going this way. Meanwhile, we're going to do two like this that aren't going to be as strong, but they are going to be radially symmetrical. So check this out. Something like this. So these I'm going to intentionally leave opposite. Does that make sense? So these two are reflecting opposite of each other. Can you see that? And these two are reflecting the same. So these two are going to be inducing some roll. These two are going to be inducing some weird oscillation. That's why you kind of saw it whipping around like this. At least I think. I'm guessing here, but this will be a pretty spectacular and obvious failure here. So I'm going to do a one click less just so this isn't as violent. And I'm going to make it so they deploy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just turn off toggle. Okay. So they're just going to come out here. Oopsies. Excuse me. Just retract. Is that what I did wrong last time? Retract, please? This is going to be so weird. Weird. Okay. Well, I thought the... maybe I'm wrong. No, I can't be wrong, can I? So, man, now I wish we could just exactly recreate that last thing. But I have a good idea of how we're going to do this. Here we go. Saving it. Wonky Falcon 9. Here we go. Oh, yes. Slow load times. Nothing like a slow load time. All right, so here we are. We have our wonky Falcon. I notice these grid fins are intentionally nice and wonkified, like some crooked teeth. So this is going to replicate when we have these out, and especially if we have SAS off when they're deployed. Let me make sure, yeah, they can deploy. Good. When they're deployed, they're going to be just wonky. And the stage is going to have to try to fight that, and it's going to be interesting. So here we go, 3, 2, 1, hip, hip, let's do this. And again, yes, we are launching in the rare configuration of no upper stage Falcon 9 with a bare inner stage acting like a giant bucket for air. Throttle bucket. That was awesome. I learned the word throttle bucket yesterday. One of the speculations that we have about why it suddenly could stop spinning. And one of the good explanations could be, so it was a single engine landing, which means normally in order to actually to change your roll axis, you need at least 2 engines on the bottom stage. They have to be able to, act opposite each other. They have to be able to do one of these things. They need to gimbal opposite in order to induce roll. So a single engine really can't overcome the roll induced by those grid fins. But all of a sudden we notice at the very last second the rolls cancel out, and I can't help but notice, this is kind of speculation, that it coincided almost perfectly with when the landing legs came out. And conservation of momentum would let us know that, just like, like an ice skater, they'll have their arms out and they'll slow spin, and you could pull them in and you'll spin faster. I could do it on this chair right now, but I'd probably fall over, which might make for a better stream anyway. So conservation of momentum lets us know that those landing legs held in tight would keep it spinning, but as soon as those things deployed, these things are huge. They're so hard. There's by the time those are way stuck out there like that, they'd have quite an effect, and there's a good chance that just by deploying those, it scrubbed off all the rotational energy, which would be really cool study. Either that, or there's also the idea that because it wasn't just rolling, it was also oscillating, and the stage was kind of doing something like this. It does give the single engine gimbal a chance to counter some of that roll induced by like spinning around itself. That one's a little I'm less convinced of. I think the better theory is that the legs conservation momentum popped out, whoop, and then the other speculation is that potentially, the vehicle was just in it was going slow enough that those grid fins were losing attack. But the only thing about that is that, yes, it was really low in the atmosphere and going very slow by the end. But have you seen how much those grid fins have an effect of like the F9 Dev vehicle? So SpaceX used to use like the Grasshopper and the F9 Dev to play around with how grid fins work. And they're going crazy slow. Like they're crawling down. And even that, those grid fins can spin that stage crazy fast going that slow even. So to me, I kind of am in the camp that I don't think it was anything to do with how slow it was going, because I think it was still going quick enough. Those grid fins had quite a bit of power. Okay, this is about what we did last time, I think. I'm going to do a quick save here. We're going to do basically the same thing as last time. So I personally am in the camp that I doubt that it's because it got slower. As a matter of fact, the atmosphere is so stinking thick there, so thick that it has a lot of control via the grid fins, and when those grid fins are stuck, And now I should mention that we've heard that the failure was that a hydraulic pump failed. That's what Elon tweeted. Was that a hydraulic pump failed, and therefore the grid fins stopped where they were at. They no longer could function. They're in a single strung line, basically. There's no redundancy in this because it's not mission critical. Mission critical is taking the payload to space. That's what matters, especially when we have astronauts on these things. Recovering hardware is only really to benefit SpaceX. They're the ones reusing this stuff. This is part of their business case. It doesn't really matter to anyone else but SpaceX. So it's a safety thing as far as like making sure they don't crash into Orlando or Titusville or something like that. But that's a huge thing, but it has a very low risk of doing that, as opposed to the grid fins. They just figured, it's reliable enough. If it works, it works. And for the most part, they just stinking work. They work. But now we're going to see, this is going to be really exciting to see how this plays out, because it's going to be a very similar trajectory. Look at that. Yep, we're going to fall nice and short. This isn't the most scientific thing I've ever done, because yes, we're going to fall short. But the exciting thing is whether or not we'll see a crazy, almost uncontrolled oscillation and spin due to how incredibly steep we made these things off the get-go. One of the things to note is I'll turn SAS off, because I will act like at this point, actually I'm going to keep it on through the reentry burn so that the engines do their thing. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to point our reentry burn a little bit to help us get over towards land. And I'm going to start doing that now here before we have too much atmosphere. So this will be kind of part of the dog leg. I know it's not quite accurate, but we're going to just make sure we're getting close enough to land over there. Okay. So now, here is where the grid fins, oh, look at this, they're stuck. And notice it's getting thicker and thicker atmosphere. Notice what's happening. So even if I'm going to try to counter this using, right now I was able to counter a little bit with the nitrogen thrusters, but look what's going to happen as we get thicker and thicker and thicker. It's going to get harder and harder to overcome. It's getting pretty crazy here. Oh, the problem is when I do that, it does actually control the grid fins too. But that looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? So let's go ahead and fire this thing up. Let's see if we can bring someone to... Ah, dang it. I wish there was a way for me to turn off the grid fins. SAS. I wonder if I have them deployed. Let me see if I can set them to deploy. Let's just see if that'll work. Because I would love it if they didn't move with SAS, because I want the rest of the vehicle to try to compensate, because that's what the vehicle was doing. Its nitrogen thrusters were still under control. You know, its engine gimbal was still under control. And while we're up here, I'm going to do a little bit more of a boost this way. Just a tiny bit. Just to make sure we're going to land near land. Let me deploy these things. And then let's see if I just say deploy. Oh, here we go. I can do this. Yes, I can do this. Turn off all this stuff. Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, now you've got the failure you were looking for. That's going to be pretty telling for us. Look at that. So they will not move. There we go. That's the solution. So now, as we come back down, I'm going to go ahead and just speed this up. The Kerbal simulator is going to give us all of the answers. That's exactly right. So I'm just going to let this thing fall here. Look at that. That's perfect. That's right where we want to be. And once we get down to about 40,000 meters, I'll do our re-entry burn. And then we're gonna keep SAS on, and we're gonna try to keep this thing stable. And I'm really excited to see what happens here. See what kind of oscillations, see what kind of rotations we get out of this thing. All right, here we go. I'm gonna start slowing it down here. I actually wanted to have more time in the atmosphere, so I'm gonna do a little bit longer entry burn here. I'm confused why they changed it from re-entry to entry, because it does re-enter the atmosphere. It was in the atmosphere, it left it, and then it came back in. It's re-entering. They used to call it re-entry. Now they just call it entry, and I don't exactly know why. So outside of the atmosphere, these grid fins don't have much effect. I'm using nitrogen thrusters right now to try to rotate it, just how I'm used to it being rotated. But now I'm letting go, and I'm just letting it try to do its thing. Look at that. That's just like about what happened. Oh, even the weird pitch over. Starting to spin. The nitrogen thrusters can't compensate. Oh, look at that. Okay, let's fire up this engine here. And notice that the engine can't control the roll because it's a single engine. And notice our thrust to weight ratio is too low, so this won't even be able to do what they did. If we want to do that, we could probably, let's see here, how would we do that? But that looked like the exact failure minus the not soft landing. I like this. Let's do one more. I'm just gonna do a shorter hop, and just worry about that last like 20,000 feet. Although the speed of it coming down is also what's pretty fun to see. All right, so I'm gonna go in here. I want to make sure that on a single engine, it has enough thrust to do a landing burn like it would. All right, get back in here. Get back in here, you old dog. Wonky Falcon 9. So let's get rid of this. Let's turn off these engines. Max 1.3 to 1, that's good. Same thing there because it's just dead weight. I wonder if we move an entire stage, is that going to increase them? 1.39, there we go, that's better. I know this is kind of neutering it a little bit, but whatever. There we go. That should give us single engine enough at the end to be able to do the landing burn. Okay, let's take this thing back out to the pad. Let's do one more. I'm going to go ahead and turn off pitch, yaw, and roll control on these things right away. Just making sure. Okay. Let's do this. I'm just going to take it up a little bit. So I'm going to drain it of its fuel because we just want to go up enough to really be able to do the last portion of flight here. Yeah, no more check your staging. It's going to be check that hydraulic pump. Make sure it doesn't seize. So SpaceX did mention that they're hoping to find some redundancy and be able to do that. But then, of course, that brings into question, okay, so I thought they're freezing the Block 5. You know, does that count as far as freezing and unfreezing the design? What's that going to look like? Does it matter? Because it has nothing to do with the ascent, but it's still changing the vehicle. I just have no idea. These are all things that are, yeah, these are good questions. These are the types of questions we probably just won't get answers to. We're okay with that. They're not burdened to us. Because NASA does require 7 flights of the Falcon 9, unchanged, supposedly, a frozen design so that they can trust that their astronauts are safe on this vehicle. Let's see here. We're going to be slightly too low on our thrust here, so I'm going to do this though. All we're worried about again on this one, we're just going to worry about getting a nice quick dirty mission. Okay, and also I want to make sure this burns last, just so that so our center of mass is that way. That'll make the most sense. Okay, quick save here. Deploy these babies, and let's see what happens. Let's see what's what. Okay, so we're now falling, yada yada yada, same thing. And let's see if we do a long, I'm going to make sure our thrust to weight ratio is going to be high enough by the time we get to the bottom of that thing. Currently it will not. But we're just going to act like this is a super long landing burn. Let's do this until it is high enough. Okay, now notice, here we go. We've got a single engine running. And look at that. Does that not look about exactly like videos that people were showing? We're going to pretend we're Das Valdez from very far away. Look at that. That looks pretty familiar to me, guys. That looks pretty familiar to me. Hope I didn't make everyone dizzy right there. Or do I? Look at that. So it's unable, the grid fins are unfortunately doing their job still, in the sense that they have the most control authority in the atmosphere. That's what they're there for. The nitrogen thrusters cannot compensate. The single engine cannot fix that role. We're left with the booster that's basically just flailing right now. And really, it's just trying to maintain control. It knows that it's out of control, but what we're trying to do right now is just get vertical again. That's its only command, at least that I'm giving it. I'm not sure what kind of command SpaceX has pre-programmed, but I don't think conservation of momentum matters in the Kerbal Space Program, but in case it does, I'll deploy these landing legs here pretty soon. Notice how hard of a time, it's still fighting it. Oh man, that would be creepy to see. Landing legs. Oh, we ran out of fuel because I did that for way too long. But yeah, there you get the idea there, guys. That's what kind of happened. I didn't manage to do as good of a job as the 1050.1 by being able to bring myself down softly and land. I also threw this thing together super willy-nilly, so it really wasn't an option for us. But that hopefully helps you understand what kind of failure it was. It was where the grid fins were stuck. The grid fins have the most control authority in the atmosphere, the atmosphere is when they do that dogleg maneuver over onto LZ1, or even in the case of the drone ship, it would intentionally miss and dogleg towards the drone ship at the end. So if those grid fins malfunction, it just falls short and goes where it was going. So that's basically what happened today. I hope this helped explain that. Some of this stuff is speculatory, but for the most part, I mean, it's just kind of physics. It's just sort of what happened. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Let me know if you guys have any other questions about this stuff. Of course, this brought up the question of why don't they have parachutes, yada yada yada. That's a whole different topic. I need to remake that old video I have of why SpaceX doesn't use parachutes to land, because that one is so, it looks like it was colored by someone with a crayon. It sounds like I'm 10 rooms over. Like, it's just the worst video. It was my first video, so it's the worst video. I'll reshoot that someday, update it, make it better, and I will explain why they don't use parachutes for the booster. Think about what would have happened in this case. It would have gone exactly where it was going to go. Yeah, there's very tight margins on these things. There's not a lot of room for error. High fault tolerance pumps like this still are bound to fail, as we find out. So yeah, hopefully they learn from this, make a better Falcon 9 rocket that's even more reliable, because they're hoping to reuse these boosters 10 times without any major refurbishment. And I hope to see that. That's going to help the aerospace industry. If SpaceX doesn't figure it out, hopefully someone else does. That's the race is now on for a company to get that done exactly like that. So yeah, thanks for all your questions. Stick around. We're going to have a lot more content coming out your way. So that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Bye, everybody.